Hello, it's your boy Spud. Hey, we've got some kind of, I believe we got Braxus is the name, or Braxus?
Braxus Deninard should be here in a bit, I would hope at least. And to introduce myself, for anyone who's only just joined, Ashley Trainer, CEO of Foxholders, owner of Ashley in Space, the blog. So hopefully we should get Braxus on in a minute here, but we'll see. He's not on yet.
Discord really needs a who came and who went log, because I'm hearing movement, but I'm not seeing who exactly. Right, I think it's a bit of a waiting game. Do you want to catch us up what's going? I know that you roughly explained what was happening earlier before the stream got cut off.
So just to catch up for anyone who, like I said, has just joined us, we were having a bit of a chat in the last stream about the current eviction of Foxholders, but in the kind of greater scheme of things, the bit of kind of a World War wormhole sort of thing that's going on here. So we have on one side, we have Inner Hell, Laserhawks, Hard Knocks, and then a number of supporters of them. And on the other side, we have essentially a group of people who don't really want to stand for what Hard Knocks is all about their evictions recently. They are generally named the Frickhole Coalition, which has come about from a recent change made by CCP. So if anyone's not aware, CCP did make some wormhole changes recently. Braxus has just joined us, so we'll just go to Braxus. Hello, Braxus.
What's going on, boys?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty tired. Not bad, though.
How's the whole control going?
God knows, I'm not logged in.
Yeah, that's the good life, eh?
Hell yeah.
Just get killed to do it instead, right?
He's a good man.
So for context, Braxus, you're leading the group that is currently sitting in Ashley's hole, right?
Yep, I'm the CEO of HK. Been leading Hard Knocks for about 5 years or so. Too long, basically.
What makes you say that?
Getting old, bro.
Yeah, we all.
We're all getting old, right?
So what's this all about? What's the... I suppose you might not necessarily want to reveal all the super secrets and stuff like that, but what's the inspiration? What's the backstory behind what's going on?
Well, this whole little wormhole war started. Time to start some fights.
That's a valid reason as any, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, CCP's at this point right now where it's kind of hard to find reasons to fight in Eve, so if there's a reason to fight, let's take it.
I see, but that's sort of a personal point of my understanding of what's going on. So you're counter-evicting basically a laundry list of people that gave you trouble when you were recently attempting to evict TDSyn?
That's correct.
But is that not in some ways shooting yourself in the foot if you're struggling for fights, as you seem to be implying, whether that's anyone's fault or CCP's fault or just the nature of the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's hard in wormholes, right? It's a big duality in wormholes. Like, obviously, you can evict someone, and then that corp could die, right?
Yeah.
But the hope is that corps you evict do not die, right? Hard Knock's been evicted twice, didn't die. So the hope is that evictions do not kill corps. We're not looking to kill corporations or alliances, but we're looking for fights here, and we're looking for revenge, right? So,
Yeah. So how are you deciding what corps are... For example, I don't think you would want to necessarily evict the smaller groups because, in my opinion, I don't think they would be as likely to survive the process. How are you deciding who gets hit and who doesn't?
Anyone who came to Rage. Anyone who came to Rage last week, gonna get evicted probably.
Anyone, even if it was...
Yep.
two dudes.
Size is not a factor.
That's an interesting one, because I believe if you go for the small guys, they they're not usually the kind that can recover.
Well, there's two large coalitions right now, right? There's the coalition that we have with Hard Knocks and Laserhawks and such, and then there's the Frigg coalition, you know? So it's two coalitions, so both sides are quite large. And I mean, you know, it's not just one group versus another group, right? Both coalitions get involved. Should be large fights. Well, here's hoping, right?
True. I see the conundrum because the only way you can force a fight in this kind of space is by running an eviction. You know, it's very
That's right.
different, very
Yep,
different
it's
to
very different to null.
null-sec.
That's correct.
Whereas the problem with the fine thing about null-sec is the land still exists. You're not burning down the farm.
Exactly. And even if you evict someone from null, it's asset safety. They're not losing their ships, so it's very, very different mechanic.
They can come back tomorrow. Whereas in the
That's
wormhole,
right. Exactly.
you're gone. You're gone. It's an interesting problem to have. So you're okay with the fact that there will be some collateral loss?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of you talking about groups we're going to hit, we would like to kill TDC. We want to kill the Alliance. I'll say that very publicly. We're looking for an Alliance kill on TDC. And I've said this quite publicly again, we would be open to making deals with other groups in the coalition that they have. We don't want to be pushing out little groups, but we're going for the Alliance kill on TDC, and we'll make that very public. More than happy to do that.
What would a deal look like? What kind of thing are we talking?
Say that again, sorry? I couldn't hear you.
So you say you're looking for, you would be willing to accept deals. What kind of thing are we talking?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, surrender deals, I guess, right? We had some conversations that got leaked the other day in the Wormhole community with Laloka, who's in the initiative, part of the kind of leading the Frigg coalition. And he essentially offered whole control a deal where he would, you know, not get involved as long as we left everyone alone apart from TDC. So basically, he was looking, at least in our opinion, debatable, to leave TDC alone. And that's the sort of deal we'd be open to, you know, leave TDC alone, let them die, we'll leave everyone else.
So
I see. So it's sort of go on, Ashley.
I was going to say, can I interject with a
Feel free.
question here just about the motivations for TD-SYN in particular? That
Sure.
I find is quite curious. Is
Feel
it
free.
at all related to Exuki's position and maybe the change
Not
of
in the slightest. No, in fact, I think I should price that publicly. Like most people know who know me in the Wormhole community, I'm not particularly public. I don't enjoy being public. I don't do podcasts. I don't enjoy it very much. But I think Izuki's is a pretty good CSM. I think he's done quite well. I think most people in Hard Knocks voted for Izuki's. I think it's good to have Wormhole representation, right? I think it's good to have someone there talking to CCP. So I think he's done great. So nothing to do with the CSM at all, that's for sure.
Okay, I mean that is good to hear that it's not related to that because I feel like, you know, the representation by players that we have at the CSM shouldn't necessarily reflect on what happens to them in game. I mean, if you start going down that route, you get to points where people get bribed out of their in-game assets for the sake of decisions they may not make or things they may say to CCP.
I mean, you don't have to tell me that.
Let me tell you about starting wars over CSM stuff.
I was Noobman's right-hand man for about 2 years. Noobman was the Wormhole CSM before Azuki's. He was a great CSM as well. So, you know, no one attacked Hard Knocks because Noobman was a CSM, right? I think the CSMs we've had in Wormhole space have been great. Noobman 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. God, it's been a while.
Is that
and
historically
Azuki's
been a
now
thing of
So it's doing great.
CSM members have somewhat of a, especially in Wormholes, they don't touch them because they represent everyone kind of thing.
No, not at all. None of that stuff. I think Wormhole should be just happy we have representation, right? We're happy we've got someone speaking. No one's going to attack them just because they've made a bad decision on CSM, right? I respect him. Imagine dealing with CCP, man. I couldn't deal with CCP. I can barely deal with podcasts and stuff like that. Imagine dealing with the people that make this game. I couldn't do it. So EXO's doing great.
Hello, Villy, you snuck in there.
Yeah, I just thought that was a fun point to say hi.
So what's the next step? Once, and I suppose you could argue it's pretty much inevitable at this point due to the size of Hard Knocks. Well, I'm relatively ignorant of the power of some groups, but from my point of view, it seems it's relatively decided that you'll do what you do. The list of targets will get evicted of ultimately one way or another. If a if a agreement isn't found. What's the
Yeah,
next step? What happens after?
it's very interesting. So it's not the first time this has happened. In 2014, Hard Knocks was in a very similar war with a group called No Holds Barred. A very similar situation to what's happening now. No Holds Barred started hitting Hard Knocks farm holes in C5 and C6 space, and Hard Knocks kind of retaliated, and there was a nice little war. It didn't last too long back then. The Alliance No Holds Barred collapsed kind of because of burnout and stuff like that in early 2015. I think March 2015 or something. So it happened then once, and then it happened again a little bit in like September, October 2015 versus Drop Bears, which you guys were talking about earlier on. Drop Bears Anonymous, the Brave Corp. Happened again a little bit again. So this has happened before. So I think we're quite experienced in terms of knowing what to do, in terms of having strategies to fight this war. So in terms of what's next, I don't want to give too much away, but I think we have a pretty good plan. Let's put it that way. It has
Some
happened before.
people in the Twitch chat are asking. I think you briefly mentioned this earlier, but why is there particularly bullseye on the back of TD Sins?
A few reasons. In fact, quite a lot of reasons. My members keep bugging me to write like an AAR, like an after-action report about the whole TD Sin eviction. I've been too lazy, been very busy in real life with work, haven't written it. I'll write it one of these days, I promise. But a lot of reasons, to be honest. The number one, I guess, is just the past few years. TD Sin, for some context, TD Sin were evicted again in 2015, or I should say, tried to be evicted in 2015 by Laserhawks and Hard Knocks again. And the reason for that was very similar 5 years on now in 2020, for a very similar reason. Mostly avoiding fights, things like that. Not as PvP focused as Hard Knocks, you could say. Not being interested in fighting. So I think at the end of the day, it's number one reason. But there's a lot of other reasons as well we went into, right? Going back to the first Rage eviction in 2018 with the Initiative and the Imperium, that we had a lot of issues with, right? Some rumors that got spread around about me embezzling money, a lot of these sorts of things that they'll try to deny, but we'll get it out there in the open. So there's quite a lot of things, right? It's not one thing. We haven't had one bad fight and thought, all right, that's it, they're evicted. It's been a lot of things building up over the past 2 to 3 years, right? It's been a bad relationship for a long time.
It's a long-term cultural argument, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a very good way to put it, right? The cultures do not fit well. I think the corps are completely different in terms of culture. I think Hard Knocks is a bit more of a serious corp, and Laserhawks are more serious in terms of we try to really learn from our mistakes in fights, and we really try to seek out PvP a lot more. Whereas TD Sin, I think, are more casual. They don't really seek out PvP as much. They're not as interested in fighting. I could be wrong. I don't want to insult them. I think it's unfair when they have no one here to defend themselves, but just a bad culture clash, right?
Yeah, of course. But your opinion's yours, of course.
Yeah. A bad culture fit. Always has been, always will be.
It's not, all I'd seen so far was TD Sin. So why did TD Sin attack you? Is that right? They attacked the... oh, no, wait, sorry. I got it the wrong way around. You guys initially began an eviction on them, and then they counter-attacked, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So a free call spawned in Rage or something like that. And then, it's probably the best defense, right? And the best defense is a good offense. So
yeah,
they felt like they couldn't defend their home, so they came into ours. But we were quite well prepared for it. Everyone except for me was well prepared. I was the one person who did not save assets in Rage, didn't save some at least, because of the whole busy with work.
Is Rage gone now? It's evicted, right?
Nah, so that's part of the whole strategy moving forward, right? As well, Rage is already rebuilt, whereas TD Sin have not rebuilt. So that's part of the big thing going forward, right? Rage has got a new Fortizar. Rage, all the boys are set up. We get log on AF raiders and just dock back up in Rage. Whereas TD Sin have moved out of the hole they got evicted from, and they are living in high-sec right now.
But in terms of what happened at the time, both were essentially burnt to the ground, excluding
That's right.
freighters and whatnot.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, both holes lost all their structures.
That must be quite a hit at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of the way you come out of that is who comes out better, right?
Very true.
Who's more prepared? Who's got a better plan going forward, right? And, the culture comes into it as well, right? Are people ready to fight and continue on a war, or do they just want to give up?
It's interesting that one of the reasons this, what did you call them? The Free Coal Coalition.
That's what they're calling themselves. Let's put it that way.
It's an alright name.
Not a fan.
Well, the reason I've heard quoted of their existence was that they disagree fundamentally with Hard Knocks' culture.
What's our culture? What do they disagree with?
It
Well,
was
that's
less of
not
a
a question for you.
disagreement with Hard Knocks culture and more of a disagreement with the eviction of TD, more of coming to the defense of that and not agreeing with the continued evictions of other people.
So I have a
Although,
question, if you don't mind. Go
you
on.
go for it.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say I
You
do
can.
understand. The reasons of getting fights. I mean, it's that's something I said before. You know, it's either political,
Hmm.
loot based, or just getting fights. I completely get it. But what was your question?
I was going to say what you already just said then. You understand the reasoning, right? You used to be in Laserhawks. You understand TDC rolled away a lot from Laserhawks and have generally not been great culture-wise, like you used to be in high-class space. So I'm confused as to why you don't understand the reasoning, because you've experienced firsthand how they don't fight, right? And obviously the goal initially going in was not to kill TDC. The goal initially was not to kill this alliance. The goal was big fight, freelance fight, put a lot of work into it. And I think we got that. We got a great fight. But obviously now it's spiraled into something more. So I'm a
And
bit confused. Like, you don't understand the reasoning. You just said you understand why. You used to live in a C5. They avoided fights. I don't get it.
No. I do understand the reasoning. I'm saying the reason for the Fricol coalition. It's people wanting to fight back and defend against what's going on. Really.
But so
Um,
the free call coalitions like became a thing, right? After we evicted TDC. Like, if the free call coalition didn't spawn, right, this would have been it. TDC evicted. They
yeah,
put up in a new wormhole.
yeah, that's true. I mean, I think it's a self prophesizing thing in a way. It's like the Fricol coalition came into existence and then it needs something to do. Because if it just
But why did
disappeared
it
and
come into existence? Why did you guys come into existence? Because obviously we weren't going to evict you guys until you made that coalition, right? Like, there's no one to hit until you make the coalition. So why did you make the coalition if you understand what we evicted TDC in?
so is this a bit of a proving of a point that Hard Knocks won't be pushed around sort of thing?
No, not at all. I'm just wondering why the coalition was made. Because I think we made it quite clear we have a problem with TDC and only TDC. So why did the coalition get created?
I think honestly Loka would be better to answer that, but I feel like part of it would honestly be down to it being self-fulfilling. The coalition becoming a thing based on that defense of City Sin,
Okay, so
and
just to,
then based gone.
I was going to say, so the person who created the coalition was in the initiative, the Imperium.
I
Like,
believe
the best person to ask about the coalition creation was not a wormhole, an null person, right?
these days I suppose so, but you know as well that Loki used to be a part of Hawks and
Right,
AFK. And
but he left wormholes for the Imperium before this all started.
that is true, but I don't think it's worth assigning labels here and there. It's never been particularly helpful. We've seen in the last few evictions that null-sec entities have played a very, very big part, and I think it's almost time to stop saying, you're not a wormholer, you can't do anything,
So
unless
do
obviously we.
you think Hard Knocks should move back to Cobalt Edge and then start evicting people from Cobalt Edge? Take no risk, just live in a little Keepstar, be part of PanFam, start evicting people. Like, at least we're taking a risk, right? And we set up Raid where the Forters are again straight away. A bit weird,
No, I
right?
mean,
Like a wormhole coalition is run by someone in the initiative. Is that what you're saying?
Well, who else at the moment exists that is on a similar level or maybe bigger than the Hard Knocks and TD? Is there a lingering third party that could take advantage of, if I'm right in saying both TD and Hard Knocks being at a somewhat weakened point as their homes have currently been burnt down, even though they are rebuilding, of course?
What do you mean, like size-wise, or like
Is it,
homes burnt down?
who
What do you mean?
are the big names in wormholes beyond yourselves and TD?
Big names, size-wise: Hard Knocks, Laserhawks, Hull Control, 3 alliances, Inner Hell, quite large. TD Sin, I would say AFK, but they're collapsing right now, so maybe not AFK anymore. They're probably the big names. Other groups I'm not so good with.
So is there anybody you particularly sort of worried about coming along
No.
and taking advantage of what's going on?
I think the skill gap between the two coalitions is very apparent. The skill gap and the size gap in the two coalitions is very apparent.
think honestly a lot of it comes down to circumstance and frog holes these days, which I mean now might be a good time to just talk about the changes that CCP did make, because I suppose a number of people in the chat may not be aware of what was changed with rolling. And I mean, Braxus, do you want to take us through the changes?
Not really, to be honest. Feel free.
All right, I'll go for it. So CCP made a few changes recently, if anyone didn't know, was the way the wormholes are rolled. In the past, you would be able to jump a hole and then activate a prop mod, and you could essentially send a smaller ship through a hole and apply more mass than you should be able to do so. You could use that trick to then roll things such as frig holes relatively easily compared to now. Can't really do it. As well as C1s and a certain other hole. But the major effect has been that because of the mass regeneration on frig holes, it's now, without hundreds of destroyers, near enough impossible to roll a frig hole. So the big change with evictions now is that once you have a frig hole in your system, it's there for the lifetime of that hole. It's there as either an access route for the attackers or some sort of lifeline for the defenders. And if anyone didn't know, that's part of what came apart with the name of the frig hole coalition. As frig holes played a pivotal part in some of the initial evictions in this war.
You said you don't like the name Braxus. What would you go for instead?
I'll tell you what, we had a coalition before. Hard Knocks has been part of a coalition previously called the Sprinkles Coalition, and that was a complete shit name as well. So I can't judge names too much. I think Sprinkles was pretty shit as well. So coalitions usually named quite poorly, I think.
I think one of the second top names that was discussed was the Solaris coalition.
It's not bad.
I think it would have been good, named after
Yeah.
TDC's home. I suppose it would have had more meaning, I guess, but people voted.
TDC should have moved back in there. Big mistake moving out.
So it's quite interesting that this whole eviction rampage, shall we call it, it's extremely difficult to resist because although the list of targets, shall we call them, is quite long, and some of them are not necessarily insignificant groups on their own. The huge problem due to the nature of wormholes is they can't actually support each other in any realistic way. Or is that an incorrect assumption?
Yeah, no, you're right. And Wormholes is very different in terms of evictions. In Null, for example, Reinforcer Forters are call all your boys. Everyone can get there, right? You find a wormhole, Titan Bridge, whatever the fuck you got to do, gate there to get there. In Wormholes, it's different, which changes a lot. There's multiple targets, right? You could hit 5 different wormholes at once. It's not just Ashley's corp being evicted right now. There are other corps being evicted at the same time by our coalition. So I think the strategy is you split up. Don't want to give too much away, but the strategy is obviously you split up in wormholes. You don't all focus on one thing like in Null. You call all your boys and go to one place in Null. In wormholes, you don't do that. You try to split up as many wormholes as you can at the same time. And I think everyone's aware of that. I think TDC are aware of that. They're trying it, but they're just not as good at it as us.
I'm just really interested to see where this goes. It does
So
seem
am
a
I,
bit.
yeah. I'll be honest. I've been telling my boys.
Personal opinion, which is not.
Go on.
Not sponsored by Talking in Stations. It seems like it's going to be a session of puppy kicking, essentially. That might end up with a bit of a wasteland where there's not much going on until the world rebuilds, I suppose.
Yeah, listen, it's weird, right? And we'd prefer not to. Like I was telling my guys the other day, I think there's probably about a week left. I think it's probably 7 days left on this at the most before this is over. I think the kind of the internal spin that happens right now in their coalition is going to do a big turn very quickly when they realize that AFK is collapsing.
Well, that's why I was so interested.
Can't seem to do it. Yeah,
so interested in your plan next, because once you've burnt down the forest, well, there's no more deer to hunt. So what do you do? It's a hard.
He's hoping they don't move out of wormholes, right? He's hoping they take deals, right? He's hoping that people realize we have a big problem with TDC. And let's be honest, we can make a deal with TDC as well. If TDC are not interested in making a deal, they can always talk to us. We don't have to burn down every wormhole they move to. We can make a deal. They can apologize for what's happened in the past, and we can make a deal. That's really all we're after. We're not, going to ransom them like for faction 4 desires. We're not doing for Assault Dragon here. Just maybe an apology for what's happened in the past, some admission of guilt maybe for some of the things we've said, and we can go back to the old wormholes.
It's starting to sound personal.
Yeah, I mean, it is very personal for TD Sin, right? We've made that clear. For TD Sin, it is a personal thing. Like I said, we didn't go into this lightly. It's been a few years of bad blood, bad culture clashes, personal attacks on people like me. It's very personal for TD Sin for us. And despite that, I think we can all admit Izuki's is a great CSM, right? We would never want to personally attack them. We'd prefer to attack them in game. That's what we're doing.
So, Braxus, if you were to give TD Sin a deal, you said it would be mostly based on apologies and such.
Yep.
If there were to be something that you would say right now, like, what would it be? What would that be?
Talk to me. Discord message me. Let's have a chat. Someone from TD Sin Directors, CEO, let's chat. If you don't want to talk to me, I've got a great leadership team behind me. Laura Sacco, Victor, Jimmy, Kappa. Talk to one of them. You don't have to talk to me. You want to make a deal? You want to end this? Let's do it.
I mean, for the sake of saying on public record, intentionally, what sort of thing would HK be looking for?
An apology. That's it.
But in your words, what would they be apologizing for exactly?
Well, the accusations of me embezzling money was obviously a big one. I think you saw my Reddit post. I think that was quite rough. I think a lot of TDC members are aware of that, and they were told about it by Jack. I think Jack personally is the problem that people have in HK have a problem with Jack. Not Azuki's, but Jack. So obviously the embezzling accusations was quite rough on me personally, but also the accusation that they helped the initiative evicting Rage back in 2018. There was a lot of accusations there. We feel like we have the proof of it. I haven't released that sort of stuff. Don't know if we will. Maybe after all this. But yeah, those two things.
Okay.
Were you aware of anything like that back in 2018? What's your opinion on Jack Hamilton? You a fan?
To be honest, I don't really have much of an opinion on Jack. The period around 2018 was mostly, I think, the second proper formation of Foxholders. So at the time, I was mostly focused on pulling back a small gang thing together. So I've got this kind of 2-year period where most of the kind of C5, C6 politics just sort of, I was like, yeah, fuck it all.
Yeah, we're getting old, right? That's what I'm saying. It's been a long time, right? 7 years or so in Wormholes now. I'm getting fucking old.
So you said one of your goals is the death of TD Sin, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, but it's flexible, right?
What does that look like, though? Are you talking you hunt them down forever until they just say we give up, or you convince them to? I suppose this is probably leading into your deals. Completely change them how to change their leadership. Essentially, it sounds like I don't know who this Jack person is, but I'm guessing he's high leadership there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it can take on a number of forms, right? It could be complete eviction. It could be changing up the director team and getting rid of Jack. It could be just an apology. There's lots of ways it could go. It's still early days, but yeah, a conversation with TD Sin would straighten this out.
How do you even get a conversation like that? Because I imagine that kind of
they
thing
listen. They listen to a podcast like this, and they realize that HK's open to a deal, and they convo one of my guys.
Fair,
because they're all listening.
Apologies for the awkward silences occasionally. I'm not the most clued up on the politics of the spooky space.
It's alright. I can't say I know who Spodumane Mining Crystal is. What alliance are you in?
A completely irrelevant alliance that you've never encountered.
Okay. That's most people in the Free Gold Coalition, so
I'm not in that coalition, I can promise you that much. A little harsh, but
the harsh truth, unfortunately.
I'd say that's not completely true, actually. I was at least aware of who Outfoxed were before today.
Yeah, so was I. It's very true.
People know me for my blog, and that's about it for the most part. Usually when I say foxholders, people are a bit like,
I actually had it the other way around. I knew of the group before I knew of yourself.
I see. Well, I don't know. Yeah,
Not
people
sure.
mostly know me from my blog and my guides these days.
I only knew of Outfox because they came in and blew some of my stuff up once.
Hey, got him.
So what's TD Sin doing at the moment? If anyone knows, I don't really want to put words in their mouth as they're not exactly here to defend themselves, or that's sounding too negative.
It's not good, mate. Let's put it that way. It's not good.
Is it not here to talk for themselves? But
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to leak too much of their plans, of course, and at the same time, I don't want to insult them when they're not here. But I think how I talked about the strategy gap is very apparent in the two leadership teams, right? In our coalition's leadership team and their coalition's leadership team. I think the strategy is very, very, very different. And I think their strategy is very, very shit. I feel bad for their members.
Braxus, I've just found that. Are you aware that that Jack Hamilton actually stepped down as a director?
I was not. It'd be good if someone told me that. Because he was
again,
FCing the defense in their home, right? So I was under the impression he was an FC/director.
Okay, I mean that is something I've just been made aware of. That yeah, he has stepped down as a director.
When was this?
I don't have any timings. I don't think it's kind of in response to this conversation whatsoever.
Well, as long as his leadership, it's a concern, right? Because he was FCing their defense. So a date for when he stepped down would be cool.
It sounds like this meeting between you two guys really needs to happen before
between Hard Knocks and TDCN, certainly, right? Because Hard Knocks is obviously leading our coalition and TDCN's kind of leading theirs. So yeah, a conversation will happen, and if it doesn't, then stuff will continue.
Would it be worth having that conversation as a bit of a thing on perhaps the Sunday show or something on TIA?
Well, let's be honest here. It's pretty obvious that conversation is not going to happen. So
No, I mean perhaps not the conversation that Braxus perhaps exactly wants, but perhaps a conversation, a couple of guests, if anyone would be
sounds like you're trying to get some podcast content out of what should probably be a private thing between two leaders.
I'll be honest, I have to agree that sounds like something that shouldn't necessarily be broadcasted. Whether or not this happens or not,
I mean, even the conversations that are being had right now create a situation where there's no way for TDCN to back down. So you're effectively creating a situation. A situation. Yes, of course they can, but then they sacrifice all self-respect and may as well disband their corporation. So there's no real opportunity.
Right? Lose your self-respect or lose your alliance. You got to pick, right? And maybe they won't lose their alliance. Maybe you're right. They won't lose their alliance. Maybe we lose this war.
Saying lose their alliance implies that you can truly kill them, which is
right.
debatable,
Hard,
right?
Yeah, it's hard. It's for sure. Yeah, but, this is very difficult, right? You don't kill this sort of alliance by PvP in game, right? You've got to really demoralize them.
Right.
You've got to really split up and work hard. Yeah, that's right. But I think, for example, some of the strategies, I'll talk about this a little bit. I don't really want to, but I will. Some of the strategies you see brought in, and you might know about this, Philly, because I don't think others will. Some of the strategies TDCN are doing right now are very similar to what DCU and XIX did back in 2018 with the whole alpha comp thing, if you know what I mean. Back when XIX did alpha vexes to bash the tri-keep star and stuff like that. Very similar concept. Doesn't work. People have tried alpha fleets for a long time.
Alphas can work, but they have to the critical mass for alphas is so high. There's only
right, yeah. In wormholes, not going to happen versus a gun Fortizar. I mean, come on. Alpha oracles.
I'm pretty confident my 300 alpha hurricanes are going to be pretty good when we put them in wormholes, but that also implies that.
And TDC formed 300 people because they formed 30 yesterday.
No, obviously, right? Because an alpha ship is worth 40% usually of an omega at best. So you have to amp those numbers so much more. And I mean, of course, that implies 100% that you can't get regular pilots. Usually, you're assuming without links.
That's right.
What you can do with alpha comps is very limited.
Mhm.
There is a couple like niche scenarios where they can be really good, as I said. Where like I know for test, for example, we have our Hurricane Alpha Corp is just actually went up like last week. Like we've been training for like 8 months or something. But you know, they're extremely hard to properly utilize, and
That's
it
right.
just
I
doesn't
think it's
work.
even harder in wormholes, right? It's hard enough in null, let alone in wormholes with lower numbers, lower mobility, right? It's very hard. It has not worked in the history of wormholes, and it won't work. I think people with more experience realize that in wormholes. One thing, by the way, Ashley, you said Jack Hamilton stepped down, right, from leadership or whatever.
This is what I've been told.
The person should talk to me because he has director roles in game. One of the boys in my corp just checked. Title is still director in game, so a little bit of question mark over that one. I think is war chief in game, and he's the one like leading the coalition, right? Like he pinged a bunch of times yesterday. He's still leading everything. So whoever's telling you that is probably fibbing.
That would be well. I suggest have a chat with Jack himself. Why
I think
not
he can
just do
message me
that?
at this point. I think he can message me.
Yeah, I imagine he's likely aware.
I'm sure he's watching. I have one question as well. We can continue on a little bit. Like, how is the coalition going? Like the free call coalition thing. Like, is the coalition like banding together well? Like, how are you guys going? Like numbers wise? Like, like what's the goal of your coalition? Because I think I've talked a bit about ours. Like, what's the goal of your coalition? How are numbers going? What's the plan?
Well, with regards to numbers, I mean, I don't want to give any particular numbers away. You've seen
Come on.
kind of the response in
We
Foxholders
saw
so
yesterday's
far.
fleet.
Yeah, I mean, our fleet that we were gonna try and do something with earlier, that was not particularly impressive. That's been more down to shitty management of frig holes on my behalf. And I can put my hands up and say that, yeah, I messed up in
Hold
managing
on,
the
easy.
frig. But
Can't
anyway,
blame you there.
with regards to the coalition as a whole, it's okay. Perhaps not as big and hyped as let's go kill HK again, but still certainly there. And there's certain key members who are still there, really egging things on and making sure that people want to stick together. But yeah, the fact that we're all very spread out in smaller groups compared to being a small number of big targets as is your guys' main homes,
Mm-hmm.
definitely has a factor in the in the overall fight. It's as you said, spreading out is good, but it also makes it quite difficult to defend on multiple fronts.
And that's why I talked about history, right? Back in 2015, the same thing happened. A lot of small groups banded together to fight versus Quantum Explosion at the time. And one of the big disadvantages there is you have 10 groups, and maybe those 10 groups can form a 10 people each in fleet. So you have a 100-man fleet, but it's 10 different groups, all with varying experience levels. Maybe the one FC leading it all has got to take care of 10 different groups, and it's horrible. I think for us, we're bigger groups, and we have more people, right? So it's a smaller amount of groups, but more people, right? So we got like 5 different alliances, but more people. So it's very different to organize for us compared to you guys.
Well, for us, it's one of the biggest issues we have is quite literally just getting people organized, I would say, just getting people on comms and ready to go. It's like, it's
Yeah,
not
see,
your
that's
only comm.
that's why I don't even mean, but that's why I think your coalition is just gonna take a big shit and fail if you can't even get people on comms and in fleet. Like, I mean, come on, you got to put numbers in fleet, right? At the end of the day,
I mean,
if people can't even.
I'm
In
not
terms
saying
of
people can't.
the, go on, Ashley. Sorry.
Just sorry, I'm gonna say it's not a case of people can't get on comms and get in fleet at all. I'm saying it's very different to being, all a part of a bit of a permanent, forget the phrase blue donut since you're here.
We're not permanent, are we? We can talk about that.
Semi-permanent. Let's just say that for now. It's a bit different than having fewer groups that can coalesce into one team speak and into one group a bit more. It's
It's
exactly
okay.
what you're saying. Like if you have so many people spread apart, it's it's not 3 Discord servers to ping for people on. It's maybe 15 Discord servers to ping for people on. It's it's maybe lots of different people on lots of different servers are going to be doing lots of different things and not necessarily towing one particular line. And that is part of the major differences between our two coalitions here.
I think another one is the relationship, right? And it's fun to talk about that a bit, like the Blue Dot, right? Our coalition that we have. Obviously, there's Hard Knocks, which is us. And then Laserhawks, I think, people always kind of wonder, why do Hard Knocks and Laserhawks stick together? Well, Hard Knocks and Laserhawks have been friends for about 8 years now, 7 to 8 years. It's been a long, long time. I think it is one of the oldest relationships in the game at this point. One of the oldest friendships that exist between the leadership teams. Like NCPL, obviously, people always say, why don't they just ditch PL? Dead weight, PL Dead Alliance. They're friends, right? Leadership of friends, they've known each other years. You don't just ditch your friends like that. Same with HK and Laserhawks. We would go down for each other, right? It's been 7 or 8 years. So it's not just, we blew up, known each other for years, 7 or 8 years. God, where was I 7 or 8 years ago? They've been here for everything. In hell, that relationship has changed so much, right? It's gone up and down. We were friends in 2013, 2014, 2015. Then 2015, Quantum Explosion died. We weren't really friends in 2016. In 2017, we killed the Keepstar. Obviously, a very negative relationship there. And then 2018, 2019, not friends at all. And kind of this year, we've kind of kicked it off again, bringing back the old boys from 7 years ago. So it's all very old relationships for us, right? It's all old friends, bringing back the old days in a way. Hell was so much fun to work with back in 2015 and 2014. Just an amazing group, right? And it's so good to work with someone like that again. Same people, same people leading them that they were back then. And it's so good, So it's not so much just blowing up as it is a 7-year relationship. And I bet TDC wish they had some friends they've known for 7 years, because it's so good having people you've known that long.
Well, as a small aside, we've established that. Well, what would you call the Hard Knocks and Laserhawks and Assorted Buddies group? Is there a term I can use to refer to you as a whole?
Call us the Wormhole CFC. It's been called that for like 6 years now.
Okay, so we've established what the end goals, sort of the war goals, are for yourselves, which is the removal of TD Sin or some kind
sort
of
of deal.
white peace, kind of white peace in between that.
Correct.
For the people on the freeholders side of things, what's the end game look like for yourselves? Just, if you guys manage to get the upper hand, what's the win condition, I suppose?
I
don't think they know the answer to that, bro.
Yeah, honestly, I would actually agree with Braxus right now. I don't think we know the end win. I mean, certain people probably do. Certain people probably have things in mind, but it's probably again a splintering thing. Or certain people want different.
It's important to recognize there isn't always a win condition, and there isn't always a we go down this road, we'll take this path. It's sometimes we're going to do this thing and see what happens from.
Yeah, and that's current. That is, I can probably talk more about it a bit. That is their current goal, right? Their goal is to just hit Hard Knocks wormholes and cause destruction, right? There is no particular goal of killing the Hard Knocks Alliance, I don't think. Maybe there is. I'm not sure. Maybe they want to kill our alliance, but for now, they're looking for number one, defense. They want to defend their own holes from us hitting them, and number 2, they want to try hit our holes. But I don't think they have a specific goal of killing the alliance or anything. I don't know. You'd have to ask someone in TDC or the initiative.
What's the that's what I was about to ask. What's the null-sec side to things? As far as I'm aware, initiative got involved on the opposing side to yourself, Braxus, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that something that happens
Initiative
often?
Hard Knocks?
Sorry, can you ask that again?
If initiative and Hard Knock are friends, why are they fighting? I'm confused.
No, we're not friends. Initiative is on the side of the Free Gold Coalition. You are.
It's really just winding me up.
Yeah, I was trying to be sarcastic, but it didn't come through.
By the way, I just saw Ithaca Hawk say, "This is one-sided Hard Knock spin. Feel free to come on the podcast and chat with me, because you're the leader of AFK now, right? Let's come chat." Yeah, come on, let's have a little talk.
I mean, as much as I don't want this to get too out of hand, of course, this kind of show is open. If you just simply hop in the Talking Stations
Yeah,
Discord. You are welcome to have your say.
Evening.
I think everyone here is
hello.
mature enough. What's going on, bro?
So,
Not bad. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Pretty tired.
Ithaca Hawk, do you mind introducing yourself? Not just for the audience's benefit, but my own as well.
Yeah, so I'm Mythical Hawk. I fly with AFK. We are one of the C5 wormhole groups that is in this so-called Frickel coalition at the minute. Fighting originally to defend TD-Sin, and then we were in the Rage Eviction as well. I've been helping coordinate some of the wormhole guys, so that's my participation so far.
Can I ask how AFK is right now? What's going on in the corp?
So AFK has always been in a position that we like having good fights and we like having fun, and we're
Who doesn't,
kind
bro?
of. Oh, I know, but we're probably the casualist of the tryhards. Like, we absolutely are tryhards, but we like to keep it a bit more light. And in fact, this ethos goes back from when we had a fight with Hard Knocks about, I don't know, 6 months or so ago, and they had a single Dread, Fax, and 2 wings of Leshaks plus Lokis. We took 3 caps because we don't have the numbers to match their subcap numbers. And we lost the fight. It was a good fight. It was in Rage, and we lost. Our caps died. Most of our subs died. You know, GF. Everyone went home. Everyone was happy. And we tried to theory craft a way around how do you fight this kind of blob mentality that's kind of going on in W space. And we came to the conclusion that the only way to do it is to recruit more members and to also bring more Lokis, more Leshaks, and so on, and maybe drop a cap. And we had a discussion, and we decided that we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep our small numbers, and we wanted to kind of, keep focused on trying to do caps and trying to just maintain a bit more smaller community. That's why, of late, we were involved in the Rage Eviction. As soon as that happened, we knew that we'd be hit. We started backstopping our home, and we are probably going to do something like move out of our C5 home because we don't have the numbers to defend actively. I think this is the problem that you're seeing with the Frickle guys. Foxholes are having it right now. We can't be on an offensive and also defend our home hole. This happened to Hard Knocks. You guys were out on a defensive, so you couldn't defend, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that, and we're trying to minimize our losses so that we can continue to have a bit of fun and go on this offensive. Personally, my playstyle is different from the Hard Knocks playstyle. You guys have your own playstyle. That's your choice. I respect your choice. I don't enjoy it. I don't think it's particularly good for W space, but you're doing it within the confines of the game, and that's perfectly valid.
So can I ask a question? You spoke about the heavy armor fight we had, right? I'll tell you, I've missed most of the heavy armor fights these days because of real life. But is that your reason for getting involved in the coalition? Because you lost the heavy armor fight
No,
to
of
us?
course, that'd be pretty petty. I mean, I think it's fair to say that AFK, a lot of people view as NoHo version 3. NoHo version 2 would be Overload This, and obviously NoHo version 1 is NoHo. So ever since Overload This, there's always been a little bit of a rivalry between our members and your members.
Yeah,
I think
for
it's
sure.
fair to say that, no matter what we did, you would never trust us, and probably vice versa. And that's just the way the game is.
But
We
to be clear,
like TD Sin. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, you weren't in NoHo, right? And your CEO wasn't
I
in
wasn't
NoHo.
in NoHo. I'm not a CEO. I'm not even a director actually in AFK. I'm just one of the sort of people that does things and stands up for the corp. I was CEO over this for a while and a member in that, but I wasn't actually in NoHo myself. In terms of TD Sin, we've had a good relationship with them. We've had a number of good fights with them over the years, both in Overload This and in AFK. Heavy armor brawls with caps involved. They've helped us at times. We've helped them at times. We actually discussed recently in Corp about asking to see if the TD Sin guys wanted to get on Sissy and sort of do a little bit of practice so we could try and improve their cap usage in heavy armor brawls because we wanted to teach them a little bit. So when we saw, so earlier on, for example, you were asked to name some of the big players in W space, and you said Hard Knocks, Laserhawks, Inner Hell, Hole Control, and AFK. Now AFK is about half the members of all the other groups, and it just when we saw
How many real people do you guys have?
Real people, probably 25.
Roughly 25 real people in your corp.
Yeah, when we had a corp meeting recently, it had everybody on. I think we were like 28.
Yikes!
We're quite small by comparison to the other big groups. Like
That's yikes, bro.
We multi-box pretty heavily. Like our fax pilot in some of the fights has been doing like 3 other ships at the same time.
Yeah.
It's how we like to play. Like we like to keep small and try and do as much as we can individually. It doesn't always work, and it's quite demanding. But that's just how we like it.
Hmm.
So anyway, we saw this big coalition hitting TDSyn, and like I said, we were friends with TDSyn. We're probably never going to really help Hard Knocks with something like this because it's just politically never going to align. So we thought, well, let's go help TDSyn. And then, of course, the whole Friggle Coalition kind of spawned, and we just kind of went along with the ride. It seemed like to be honest, I felt really engaged. It was a lot of fun. Like, regardless of how you look at it, hundreds and hundreds of players are involved right now. Hundreds of people are engaged and following this. The meta game is super exciting, even if, and we all know, Hull Control is boring as fuck, and bashing Fortizars is just mind-numbingly tedious. Like, the actual in-game content right now is terrible, but the meta content is fantastic.
For sure. I mean, that's how we do it, right? I spent a month seeding Tedson's home. The 36 carriers I put in. It's 36
massive
carriers and 3
respect for
dreads.
that. That's exactly why we play this game. That's a really
About a
cool
month.
goal to have. Like, I mean,
No
we
one else does it,
reacted,
right?
and
No one else
exactly.
goes for these big fights except us. No one else puts that effort in, right? We spent a month planning. We spent a pretty big chunk amount of money, right? You saw the TFIs of 1.5 bill each. I'm sure you can guess how many TFIs we bought. It's a big number. Spend a lot of money, right? About a month planning.
So here's a
We do
question:
all that because
when you were planning, did you ever sort of consider maybe taking TDSyn just with Hard Knocks, or was it always we're going to ask for help from these other big groups?
How does Hard Knocks fight 80 carriers?
I mean, there's other. What about, for example, just Hard Knocks and Laserhawks?
How does Hard Knocks and Laserhawks fight 80 carriers in US time zone?
I mean, they only had 80 carriers because they had everybody coming to defend them because you guys had so many.
They did.
Like,
Most carriers are TDSyn.
Is this talking about the null-sec interference?
No, just in general. Like, he's asking why we brought Hull Control and stuff like that. We brought Hull Control in hell.
Was like whether or not, like, did you expect the response from the Wormhole community plus initiative?
Well, just one sec. Could you link me that battle report?
Yeah, someone look at the battle report. Feel free. Yeah, TDSyn had about 80 carriers ish between the two fights, the first fight and the second fight. The first fight, I think we killed about 30-ish carriers. Someone can correct me. We killed 30-something carriers, and about 40 got away. We fucking suck, honestly. We got a lot of carriers getting away in the first. We could have ended it right then, And it's
so. Are you
fun about
combining different engagements, or there was one?
No.
Engagement?
No. One engagement. Feel free to find the battle report and someone chuck it in TIS or whatever chat it is. TDSyn, in terms of numbers, are much bigger than Hard Knocks, and they are mostly US time zone.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say though, like an average Hard Knocks member could probably count for like maybe 1.5 TDSyn. Like you have to say it yourself, they're more casual than you. Yeah, they're casual. Like the same.
Yeah,
I would say the same with AFK. Like we're tryhards. We like to take it hard. You do the same.
Here's the thing, right?
TDSyn don't, and that's their style.
Casual does not matter in an eviction because everyone can log on, right? It's a weekend. You're getting evicted. Casual members are members in an eviction. In a heavy armor fight, sure, they're casual. They can't log on in 1 second for a ping, But if you're getting evicted, casual members are members, man. They can jump in a carrier and they can. At that point, it's just numbers and corp that matters, and that was very clear on the battle report.
So how do you guys feel about null-sec getting involved?
I mean, you can't blame him, right? null-sec fucking sucks right now. The real enemy here is CCP, bro. Null's boring as shit.
I agree with you
to fix
an extent on this, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't get involved if you're in null? My god, it's like Wormhole is not getting involved in null. If you're a Wormholer and you're not hunting in null, you're dumb. Like, come on. Go hunting null, it's free content. It's fun as hell.
It's also fair to say, like, 2 years ago when the entirety of W Space just got out and got super carriers and ran around null-sec as well, so this is probably their turn to do something in our space.
Not sure about the entirety of Wormhole space, just Hard Knocks and Laserhawks, I think, but yeah. I mean, if you don't hunt in null, you take advantage of it, right? It's free content.
So could it be that the huge numbers brought against you because of a previous eviction, which was seen as heavy-handed or one-sided?
What are you talking about? Sorry, I don't understand the question.
The Beyond the Breach eviction.
What do you mean? Like, I don't get it.
You guys brought quite a lot against such a small Wormhole group, and perhaps the reason why there was such a massive blob against you was because of this. People.
I don't think so. I think we should have lost that fight. We did terribly. We did horrible in that fight. We fed so much. Paying out the SRP bill from that fucking sucked, man. Should have lost. We fucked up a lot. The doctrine we took was shit. That's why we don't fly.
It's sounding to me like there's a lot of long-term bad blood in all sorts of directions in Wormhole.
It's mostly just Mostly just Hard Knocks and TDC, right? Both groups are leading their respective coalitions, so that's what.
Right.
Yeah, Beyond the Breach was a great fight. We can talk about that more if you'd like. Beyond the Breach was a very good fight. Someone can link the battle report if they want in Twitch, whatever.
What was the?
We made a lot of.
I think one of the fears was it was a fight where a small Wormhole group was being evicted by not only you, Hard Knocks, but also Laserhawk and Inner Hell, three of the biggest groups. And then, not even 2 months later, we see TD Sin being evicted by the three biggest groups plus Hole Control. And it was just people were scratching their heads thinking maybe we should stand up against.
Can you remind me exactly how Hard Knocks and Laserhawks got into that eviction? Remind me how we got in there? Beyond the Breach?
Beyond the Breach, I believe you were called in by Inner Hell because such a small group was being evicted by such a large group. They asked for help.
But that small group formed 40 carriers and could have taken whole control and just kept us from coming in, right? Like Hard Knocks came into that eviction like half an hour before the timers. We just walked in the front door.
So your defense for blobbing is that they had more numbers.
What do you mean defense for blobbing? I don't think we blobbed them. We almost lost that fight. Like I said, terrible fight.
No, but what I'm saying is that like every time somebody's like, okay, why did you do this thing? And you're like, well, they had these numbers, which is fair, but you're just kind of changing that dynamic to be like, well, they had more numbers, so we had to have more numbers.
For sure, we would have lost otherwise. You got to have equal numbers, right? At least, especially fighting a carrier blob. Like, how do you deal with 40 carriers? How do you deal with 40 carriers on a Fortizar in Worm? It's very hard.
And you start shredding the fighters, and then you reship.
Did you see the battle report? We formed a heats for Beyond the Breach, and we mega fed. We did pretty bad. Like, we formed a heats, we did shit. You couldn't break carriers on a Fortizar with faxes. It's too hard, man. How do you break carriers on a Fortizar with faxes?
You don't. All you have to do is kill all their fighters, and then they're useless.
With 40 carries, it's way too hard. We saw the same in TD Sin. Like, TD Sin's 80 carriers, I think we learned a lot there, we had SS carriers seated. That was the whole plan for TD Sin.
To be fair, I was extremely impressed with TD Sin's ability to hand out ships. Like, they handed out like hundreds of billions worth of stuff, and that has to be fucking respected right there. Like, that was an immense fight. Like, I know a lot of people had a great time. I think I was flying a Macarial at one point in one of those weeks. I ended up getting podded out and couldn't get back in for the rest of it, unfortunately. But
it was very even as well, right? The first fight.
Yeah, it really was. It really was very even, and massive respect for TD Sin for not only having all that shit ready and then fighting with it, because they lost hundreds and hundreds of billion, and they were just handing out these 1.5 bill max carriers. Like, that's awesome, and that was an amazing amount of content for a lot of people. I know Loro came on and said basically the same thing. Like, he had a great time in that fight. I did too.
Hell yeah, everyone did.
It was fantastic content.
Yeah, we did the same. We handed out the 1.5 bill TFIs, not max, for everyone. Warped in, had a lot of fun. We fed like 130 bill in the first fight, and TD Sin fed like 190. And we learned a lot as well, right? Because our plan, obviously, I think everyone could see, we seeded SS carriers with SS fighters into TD Sin time. And the plan to counter TD Sin's 80 carriers was you have your own 36 carriers and you drop SS fighters and you defang them. So you have a nice SS blob on top of your TFI fleet and you just get rid of damage off yourself, right? But it didn't really work out that way, honestly. We made a lot of mistakes. Because TD Sin warped to the static, if you remember, right? They warped to a wormhole. It wasn't the fight on the Fortizar, it was the wormhole one that was the rough one. So they fought off the Fortizar. So had to take carriers to a ping with nowhere to tether, like nowhere to be safe. Had to take carriers to a fucking ping above the wormhole. Then burn SS fighters down, and then it took a long time to clear fighters as well. Like, defanging 80 carriers is fucking hard with SS fighters. It took so long. We've had so much doing it.
I was very surprised they didn't have any fighter caches developed.
Yeah, that was one thing. So one thing, obviously, have more fighters or SS fighters to get into an SS war, right? Like you would in Null. Number two, we warped 36 carriers to a ping 200 above a wormhole. Imagine if they just flung a Dicta on top of us and then flung 10 dreads on top of us. We had 3 faxes. We would have fed all 36 carriers. So
that's not quite correct. Like, like, even if they bubble you, yeah, okay, and then if they put 10 dreads on you, like 3 faxes, like to be fair, 3 faxes can almost tank 10 dreads, and
the 3 faxes were down on the wormhole at 0, and the faxes were repping the T5s on the wormhole at 0, so they weren't up on the carrier.
What I'm saying is that, like, having 10 anti-cap dreads just randomly hanging around waiting for somebody to make a mistake that's not something, and then assuming that they're not going to drag bubble themselves, like, it's just not something you would ever plan for in a normal situation.
Yeah, and I think that was part of it, right? It caught them by surprise for us having 30 carriers in their home with SS fighters, right? That was the big thing. They were very surprised to see that, I'm sure. not really a strategy, right? If you seed people, you usually seed dreads, right? Yeah, get into dread brawl, but we seeded carriers instead.
If I might drag it back to an earlier point,
Mhm.
so the initiative was the major null force that joined on the Freakhole side.
Yep.
Was there any similar happenings on the other side?
With Hard Knocks calling null people?
Yeah, did you fellas have support from that
We
kind
did,
of?
yeah. Yeah. If people look at the battle report, I'm sure again, someone will link it. I couldn't be fucked to find it. We had Fraternity in the first fight. Fraternity formed. Shout out to Fraternity, fucking legends. When Initiative came in, we started doing the same. We called Frat, got Frat in Mutants, I think it was. Brought a Mutant Fleet. And that helped us win the first fight a lot, having Frat there. And then NC came as well. Killer formed NC and came along, which is great as well. So yeah, we had null help as well.
I heard a rumor that you guys cover a number of fraternity wormholes, and that's why they came to support you. Is there any truth to that?
Not true. No, nothing like that. In fact, we can talk more a little bit about Fraternity. I think one of the reasons, as people know, Hard Knocks used to own Cobalt Edge in Null. And one of the reasons I got very tired of fucking dealing with all that shit was because Fraternity moved to the drone regions, right? And I didn't want to blue them.
On the topic of rumors,
Too many
Billy,
blues, right?
could you confirm? Apparently, Tess was trying to roll into the wormhole as well. ProGod was trying to get in on the action. Was that true, or was that just a rumor?
Yeah, at one point I think we were interested in coming, but like I don't think we ever actually formed the fleet. We just we can't get there, so we're not.
Can't blame them, right? Who wouldn't want to get involved? It's a massive trillionisk fight. Everyone's got to come, right? So much fun.
Yeah, but rolling into, what is it, 1 in 512, 500
Yes.
something?
Yeah, it's very hard to roll in.
Yeah, like if there was a hole for us to come, I think we probably would have been there. But like if you don't have hole control, it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna form 300 guys, and we're just gonna sit with our dick in our hand, waiting for somebody.
You guys did come, right? You guys came for the whole timer. Test brought like 100 people for whole.
Maybe like not like the heavy duty stuff we would have.
Yeah, it was a free call, I think. But you guys formed like 100 boys in jackdaws or some shit. I don't know. Some free call comp and came in.
Did we? I don't know.
Yep. I'll link the battle report, please. Get in.
What's
nobody's
link all the battle reports,
so.
boys. Chuck them in fucking Twitch, the battle reports, because yeah, Test came on TD's inside with like 100 boys.
I think that was more of a brave.
I don't know who formed you.
Is it not? I can't quite remember.
Nah, just link the battle report so we can stop talking about it.
I know Asher brought in
look, I put it in
at
online.
1 point from Goons, and then I believe he warped it straight to Fortizar 0 and got PDS.
Yeah, I missed that fight and I was really sad. It was like middle of the day for me. I was at work. But yeah, I think Goons came in jackdaws as well. And did Horde come? I'm pretty stupid. I don't think Horde came.
It's probably safe to say everybody came that could.
Yeah, you can't blame them, right? Fucking awesome fight.
So, Braxus, just on wormholes again, since I think we're getting a little bit distracted.
So
how do you feel about C6 space?
What do you mean?
Like, what do you think about C6 space in its current situation?
I think CCP is to blame for a lot of it. If you mean the fact that it's farmholes, is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's where I'm sort of leading it. Like,
yeah,
a lot
of
people, like we wanted, for example, in AFK, to consider moving back up to C6s, maybe taking back like Polaris or something.
About that.
The old NoHo home. Yeah, I know. I know TD Sin are thinking of doing it as well. If a couple of big PvP groups decided to move back up to C6 space, do you think Hard Knocks, Laserhawks would be interested in doing the same, or would you guys stick in C5 space?
Yeah, so were you around in 2014, 2015 or not? In what was? Were you around in 2014, 2015, Ithaca, in Wormhole?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you remember
when... Would you move back up?
So I'm asking you, like, were you around then? Because I'm trying to explain what happened last time everyone lived in 6/6 space, right?
Oh, I was around. I wasn't in NoHo, and I was aware of what was going on. In fact, I think I first was in W space in around 2012, but that was in Talakan United.
That's always hell.
Joining us, our potential new friend, Mr. Jack Hamilton.
Hey, you got me, boy. Hello?
Are you there?
So, anyway, I'll answer your question because he's not talking. I'd love to, yeah, in 6/6 space. I think it'd be open to it for sure. It's one of those things that everyone has to get on board for, right? Because, like you said, imagine if TSN and AFK moved to a 6/6 and no one else moved. You know, what would happen, right? They'd fight each other and no one else. You know what I mean? So it's one thing that has to happen as a community, right? A community has to be like,
we need CCP to fix Wormhole space a little bit as well. Now, we started talking about it when there was the rumor that C6s were going to get the geostatics. And if I think C6s did get geostatics, then that would be a hell of an incentive for a lot of these groups to move up. Because know and I know that rage rolling 512 C5s is just awful, especially when it's quite empty at the minute. So if a lot of these groups that currently live, and personally I think some of the smaller groups should be encouraged to move up to C5. We saw Nomex doing it recently. Now I think they're being evicted, but that's beside the point. But I think a lot of the C4 groups tend to live there because they're afraid of being evicted, essentially. But you can be evicted in any class of Wormhole, especially with the big groups. It's actually easier not to bring caps. You know, we saw. You look at any eviction, like you guys evicting TDSN, you brought caps because you could, but that could have quite easily been accomplished without them if it was a C4. I think groups should not be afraid and they should move up.
For sure, absolutely. And I think CCP gives us a helping hand to C6 space, or the Wormhole, leadership can have a little chat, and maybe there's a little move to C6 space, because, it's a
very good region.
I think for me, if we had dual statics in C6 space and we got to have a null static, that would be a dream come.
You wouldn't get a null static, 100%.
Yeah, you're not going to get a K space
static. Imagine
it'd be like a C4 and up, probably.
Everyone talks about it. It'd be amazing, but there's no point talking about it. It's not happening. No faith in CCP to do that.
Drop dreads or whatever you want out, go back home again. Oh, beautiful.
A different discussion. Might be too strong. I don't know. But yeah, C6 space for sure. Hell yeah. Back in 2014, a lot of PvP groups were in 6/6s. We can do it again. It'd be awesome.
Personally, I'm just interested to see where this whole sort of Frighole thing goes politically, because as you mentioned, we saw sort of two coalitions form on both sides. You've got yours with Laserhawks, Hardknocks, Inner Hell, and Hull Control being, I guess, the prime ones, and then and actually hitting this earlier on, the Frighole coalition is made up of a lot of more but smaller groups, and it's a lot more fragmented. And there's a lot of lower skill pilots. There's a lot of less experienced 3D crafters. It's not quite as polished, so it's definitely going to be an interesting dynamic. If we can, knock them into shape, if to use that turn of phrase, and get something out of it, then it could be interesting. But I definitely think there's going to have to be some coordination done between all those different groups, and that's where I think we're struggling at the minute. Like, see the Discord. I'm almost certainly you can see it as well, because I'm assuming Hardknocks always have spies. That's the golden rule. Always assume everyone's a Hardknock spy. So I'm assuming right now that you're looking at our Discord.
You are not wrong.
But coordination is always difficult. And the more groups you have, and the more cultures, and the more people, and more different styles, the more different, even just, for example, bookmarking. Like, trying to get through chains when everyone uses different bookmarking formats is a fucking nightmare, because no one knows what to follow.
It's very hard, right? Nations, coalitions, very hard. So, good luck,
Can I
I
interest
guess.
you in joining Frighole Coalition instead? Why don't you just take Hardknocks, leave your little one, come join us?
How much are you going to pay me, man? Give me some money, right?
I will give you at least 1 million-isk.
Fuck yeah. Honestly, in all seriousness, I feel like I'm getting too old to honestly listen to, newer players, if you get what I mean, right? I don't play as much as I used to, certainly. A few years ago, I'm getting fucking old, man, working a lot. So, I could never do that sort of thing, just because, other than the whole skill gap, it's much more babysitting, I feel, right? Like you explained, explaining Wormhole bookmarks. I could never sit there and explain Wormhole bookmarks to my boys. I don't have time anymore. So, unfortunately not, I'm afraid.
You still struggling with your microphone, Jack? I'll have to take that as a yes.
I'll take that as a yes. I'm going to go take a piss, boys. I'll be back in like a minute, yeah? I'm going to have a piss.
All right, we might end up wrapping up while you're gone, but...
I can stick around if you're wrapping up now.
Hello?
Oh,
there we go.
Here we go.
You figured it out.
Yeah, I don't use Discord all that often, sorry.
Join the club.
I just wanted to... Sorry, Jack, you still wanting to run for your bio break, or do you want to carry on?
No, I'll stick around if you want to keep going. It's fine. I can hold it in.
I just wanted to point out, Brax, I sent you the announcement I made back in the 7th month of 2019. I'm not a real director. The ping went out for the eviction, and I volunteered to step up because they needed bodies. That's it.
But you're leading fleets. You're leading fleets to attack our farms, right?
Sure. I'm playing Eve. I've got people who want to shoot your stuff. Why don't I come shoot your stuff?
Didn't sound like you had much success yesterday, man.
Of course.
Stuff good.
Director.
That's the Eve, isn't it?
But no, you're right. I'll absolutely admit that. If you're not a director, I'm sorry for saying that. I shouldn't have said that. You're not a director. But FC, I guess, is the way to say it, right? You're FCing the attack on our farmholes, right? You are leading the attack on our farm. So yeah.
Again, I got people who want to shoot shit. I'm gonna take them and help them shoot shit. I never claimed to be great at it, but I'm learning different things, and I thought I actually had a great. I had a lot of fun yesterday trying to, and I learned a lot of lessons. That's really it. At the end of the day, at this point, my goal is to shoot shit, and that's it.
Join the club. That's why we seated you home, right? I want to shoot shit.
And it was a great fight. Yeah,
it was great fight. Yeah.
It was great. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. Hal, I put that GF post on Reddit. Honestly, the fights were fantastic. They're far and away the biggest fights I've ever gotten. As you pointed out before, the skill gap is a thing, and that's fine.
It's whatever.
Yeah. We'll
you don't get those fights at wormholes, right? The only times those fights happen at wormholes is when someone puts the effort in seeding like that. You got to put the effort in seeding and scouting and all that sort of stuff. Those fights don't happen in wormholes either. Like, if that doesn't happen, so it's good that people put the effort in and make that content happen for everyone.
Exactly, and that's why why we stockpiled chips and hulls, so we could do that sort of thing, and we could when you guys came to evict us, we would have a big ass fight.
Let me tell you, I am not subtle when it comes to seeding people's homes.
I said it before.
If you're getting evicted by HK, you probably know because I'm not subtle.
Well, I mean, you guys were always the bigger fish, and we've pretty much been prepared for that. Like, I've always operated on the assumption you live in wormhole space until a bigger fish comes along and kicks you out. So that's why I like running defense fleets. They're always fun. It's a bit of a change for me to go on the offensive for once. It's running a war or whatever you want to call this is a pretty great time, and I'm learning things, and that's the key thing.
Yeah, it's good fun. Stuff never happens to wormholes, right? It hasn't happened in a long time. It's been years. Wars are like a normal thing in null, right? They do wars all the time or whatever. In wormholes, you never really have a true war
for a very long time. To be
fair,
fair.
NC members are having a war up north right now. I mean, it's over now, but versus UOTG, like there's at least wars that happen, right?
I'm talking about wormhole space. You're right.
Sorry.
It's been stale for a very long time.
Yeah.
We've had groups form. It's sort of this honor brawl system has been going on for years. Like, other than the odd eviction now and then, but it's usually of someone that no one really cares about, or
exactly.
a boogeyman. Like, Hard Knocks is fair to say. Hard Knocks and Hell are probably the boogeyman of W space for a lot of smaller corps. So, and to be honest, in my opinion, that's a good thing for the game. Like, having a boogeyman, having a bad guy for everyone to sort of point at and be like, if you don't roll your holes, Hard Knocks will come for you. Things like that. That's good. Like, it's good and healthy for the game, and it's just escalated to this point of we've stagnated, and it's built up this pressure, and all these little groups that have maybe got like 10, 15 people, and they live in a C2, and they've been afraid of Hard Knocks for ages, and they all roll away from you because they can't fight you because they're afraid that you'll blob them. Now they see this opportunity to get in on something, and they can be like, "I'm doing my part." They're that little person in the back. They're sitting 3 people in fleet helping out. It's getting a lot of people involved. It's going to be awful in terms of a lot of the boring content. Trying to defend farm holes, trying to attack farm holes, just reinforcing structures. 90% of this is going to be boring as shit. But we're all here for that 10% when it's not.
Exactly. Should be good fun.
It is.
That's the goal. I'm happy to kill shit at the end of the day. That's my goal.
A lot of the evictions are more for profit and content rather than actual full-scale, I'm taking control of your hull for whatever reason.
Previous ones or like now?
Current.
Nah, this is because of the war, bro. We just talked about the drama. Like, these evictions are all because we hate each other. It's a war. No one's on it for profit.
The only groups that really do it for profit are Inner Hell. Yeah, Inner Hell did it for profit, but they're kind of the exception rather than the rule. They do it
previously. Not as part of this war, they're doing it with us, right? They're part of that coalition. Inner Hell previously do it for profit, sure, but right now they're with us in the coalition. They're doing it because they're part of this war.
Sure, but even just going after AFK structures is still decent ISK in EVE. Like, we've had a couple guys do it where they just go around, hit low power structures that people put up, make a couple bill off of it, and move on with their lives.
Yeah.
Evicting for ISK isn't a new.
Yeah, but in this war, no one's doing it for money. Everyone's in it for the fights and
which is good, and that's why we cheapened up the doctrine we're trying to roll with for a coalition, so we can try to stretch our skill and our preparedness a little further.
That's quite a yikes fit, my friend. Quite a yikes fit.
What? You've never seen a Guardian with 50 million ISK and fittings?
Put your Dracoic fit somewhere, man. That's something I haven't seen before. Let me tell you,
It's
interesting.
It's something different. We're trying something different.
Whatever, right? If it works.
Exactly, and we'll see. Kappa outplayed us last night in his farm hole with the yachts, which was a good play on him. It was extremely interesting trying to fight those Icky Tursas of Hulk controls.
Yeah.
That was interesting. The fact that they couldn't get close enough to kill us because we had too much logi and we couldn't catch them. It was interesting. It was interesting to try something different. It's nice to not have the same old.
Yeah, for sure.
Same
Can
old.
I ask?
Sure.
Can I ask why you called the initiative in that fight? You were fighting like 20v20 versus whole control, and then you called the initiative through a delve.
The fight was going to go on forever. We couldn't catch them. We had a connection to delve. That's how we got a carrier in there. We asked around to see if they could get us a carrier so we could do some rage rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could get them pinned down, then cool. If not, I'd assume that whole control could see them coming and bail. They had lots of distance. I have no illusions that they weren't trying to do the same thing, though. That they were trying to fight.
They didn't call another once. They didn't call 200 people.
Okay. If I had more people closer, I probably wouldn't have. But they happened to be there. They seem to be wanting to work with us. Why not work with them?
Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying, I feel like your coalition's at the point where you're fighting 20v20 and you can't win, so you just call the initiative. Seems odd, right?
Sure, I suppose. I mean, I can see how you come to that conclusion.
But what if the other side had 50 carriers?
Well, then you'd have
in a random 5-6.
Like, I don't blame Braxus for.
You got 50 carries now, bro. I'm proud of you in that 5-6. You got 50 carries now. I'm proud of you. That's some serious leading.
Yeah, is that actually like something that's hard to do in wormholes?
Yeah, it's fucking hard. It'll be a month to get 36 in.
Yeah, you get 3 at a time.
Let's put it that way.
If you get direct connections one after the other, it would maybe take you like a day at best, but that's never going to happen unless you're unbelievably lucky with your rolling.
The number I tell people, and the number I told my leadership at the start of this, is about 30 to 40 caps a month in someone's home.
Yeah, I'd say
30 to 40 in a month is about how it is, and no one else ever does that, right? It's just us that does it. So
no one can be bothered. I mean, I can't be bothered.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like we put more effort in than most, right? We put effort in to get these big fights, right? These big trillion fights. We put the effort in for our members.
Yeah,
we do all that work for a month.
If that's the style of gameplay that you enjoy, and some people enjoy that, obviously you're one of them.
We will absolutely put the effort in to get those big fights.
Then you do that, and then fair enough. I'm not willing to do that because it doesn't interest me, to be honest. Like, I'm not particularly interested in evictions to begin with. The only reason I'm interested in this case is, like I say, because of the meta content that surrounds it. And that's it. That's my sort of end game with this frig whole thing. Is, you know, I don't care. I don't want loot. I'm not caring about like structures or whatever. I just kind of want to see where this goes and make it interesting.
I don't know why you care about the meta, man. Just shoot people. Who cares about the meta or the politics or whatever?
Because I've shot people for years, and shooting people with no reason is getting kind of boring. Like, these honor brawls and W space are getting a little bit boring, but there's nothing behind it. Like, what's the reason? Like, oh great, you know, it's generic Wormhole Corp number 27, and we fought with the armor against them, and we won this time. But don't worry, they'll win next time. Yeah. And now it's like, hey, you know, we've got a bad guy, we've got an enemy to shoot at, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, because we're seeing a lot of people who haven't played for a while actually sort of log back in, because
that's right.
Being part of a generic Wormhole brawl is fun, sure, mechanically, but is it interesting in the kind of overall scheme of what keeps people engaged? Not really.
Can I ask, like, why it hasn't happened earlier? Like, why do you think no one ever seeded 50 carriers into Rage, for example, and like evicted Rage? Like, why is it? I don't know. Like, why is it always HK who like starts?
I'll tell you exactly why, to be honest, because
Go for it.
If anyone thinks about it, so Rage is there, and everyone's like, hey, we should all get together and evict Hard Knocks. Right, cool. Now we have to start making all the effort, and as soon as you do it, you're probably going to get retaliation eviction. I mean, that's fair enough. It's exactly what's happened to you right now. You evicted TD Sin, you get retaliation eviction. And people are just genuinely either a combination of can't be bothered with the initial prep work, because you need a certain type of people to be able to do that, or two, they're afraid of losing their stuff and they don't want to go through that. And I'd say probably 95% of corps and WCs will fall into one of those two categories, if not both.
Yeah.
And you need someone to push. In this case, it's Hard Knocks. And 100%, I commend you for doing it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's reinvigorated a lot of things. But the realistic view is no one, like very few people are going to have the drive and the willingness to be able to lose everything to do that. If AFK tried to do something like that, we would have had to have completely evac our wormhole in advance because we wouldn't be able to defend it, and more likely than not, because of our small numbers, we would have burned out. And that's not something we wanted to do, so that's why we never did it. TDSyn, I'm assuming, would feel the same thing. They're not really into big evictions of people by themselves. You guys feel differently, and that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's why no one's attempted it before.
Down to put the effort in, we're down to leave our home undefended. Let's fucking go. Let's have a big.
I mean, I could even
Obviously.
point out what you said earlier, right? Man, I work now. I have a job. I'm not in school anymore. I come in, I work 50 hours a week, and then I come home, and I'm just like, man, I do not want to sit down and organize a month-long seeding op so I can go have a couple big fights. I don't have the energy for it.
Yeah, I mean, I missed most of the TDSyn fights, very sadly. I missed almost the whole eviction, which is really sad because of work. But, I did the initial seeding, right? I seeded the 40 caps. So that's like my contribution, like planning it and the carrier seeding. But, that's what happens as you get older, right? You can't log on instantly for a ping, but you can certainly set stuff up and plan stuff and stuff like that, And seeding, it's like a month-long thing, but, you can do it over a month. You can find time when you're left schedule to do it. You can do it in the evenings if you're Australian like me. Very lucky to be Australian for that. So, you got to make it work with your schedule, I guess, is how it works.
Sure. And I think that's all sort of like, that's always a thing. It's always the challenge of running anything in Eve. It's, it's still kind of a job, not really because you're enjoying it, but it still takes the energy out of you. And it is what it is, right? Again, good work for you guys coming in and seating us. It was honestly, we didn't see the carriers coming. And if I could rewind time and do that fight again, and you could see we did it in the second fight, as I would have kept Dreads back to do that sort of thing.
That's right. Yeah, you learn a lot of lessons, right? Like, for example, we didn't expect you guys to fight on the static. If you fought on the static, like if we knew ahead of time you'd fight on the static, we would just seed 40 dreads instead of 40 carriers and just warp 40 dreads on you at 0 and kill your 80 carriers and just end the fight. You know what I mean? But we seeded carriers because we thought you'd fight on the Fortizar grid for the armor timer. You can't warp dreads on an anti-capital Fortizar, so you have carriers 1,000 off with fighters. So yeah, learn a lot of lessons. A lot of mistakes happen, you learn from them.
There's no like I've seen enough fleets where we show up and we gang something that it's the same thing I've done 1,000 times. This was nice. And the fights we've been doing with Friggle Coalition have been nice because there's something different, and they're not the same flavor of Wormhole we've had for the past, at least since I've been here. It's been nice.
Yeah, exactly. Good to do something different. That's we ran Cobalt Edge for 18 months or so. Something different, right? Very stressful, but tell you, a lot of fun. Something different.
Did you guys consider defending Rage, or was it always the plan to let the structures die and just log everything off?
In the most recent one, last one.
Yeah.
Nah, we always had to make a decision, right? Do we stay in TDC and kill TDC, or do we go back home? And so we had a big think about it, and we thought, well, nothing's going to drop from Rage. I think about 20 bill dropped from Rage. Do you know how much dropped? Mostly me, because I was at work. I dropped a bunch of Macarials. Does anyone know how much dropped?
Those fucking Macarials, man. Like,
yeah, it was me. Yeah,
they caused more issues than fucking half of the other things, to be honest. Because half the people wanted to steal them, and other people wanted just to shoot them, and people were arguing about it.
Yeah,
that's the other problem with having people in 20 different corps.
Yeah, it's like someone make a decision.
You make a decision based on what you want to do, and
yeah. No, I was just curious whether decision was made before the TDSyn eviction even started. Like,
no, we didn't.
Let it burn, or whether it was a sort of at the time decision.
No, we didn't intend to lose our home. Be some idiot spin master if he said, "Yeah, we didn't want our home anyway, right?" Fucking moron. No, we obviously wanted to keep Rage. It sucks it got evicted, but you have a plan for it. You have people with freighters. You rebuild. It's all good, But yeah, we obviously intended to not lose Rage.
But you guys didn't want to lose our Rage, right?
Yeah, we set up again already.
I don't like that terminology then of evicted. Perhaps like cleanse,
lost some structures. Yeah, lost some structures. Whatever you want to say.
Cleanse the
reset.
Wormhole. Yeah.
To shout back to one of our memes, relocation assistant.
But once again, they weren't relocated, right? Like they just had their stuff blown up, and then nothing changed.
You could look at it that way, but you can also look at and say, well, they are starting with a fresh hole, so it's the same as moving into any other wormhole. They just chose to move back into the same one.
Yeah.
It depends how you look.
But that's not true because
they've been evicted in principle, and that they no longer live there.
Right, all of their freighters are in space in that system, like sitting where probably Fortizars or Keepstars used to be, right? All of their assets.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
This is actually an interesting question that I can ask. It follows on from this. Why did TDSyn leave Solaris, Jack? Like, surely the smart idea is drop a Fortizar in the hole you got evicted from, and then just continue on, right? Like just drop a Fortizar and just continue on. You log on your freighters and you warp to the Fortizar and dock up, and there you go. You know, it's easy for members to rebuild. It's very easy. You know what I mean? Like moving to another wormhole is more effort than just building up in the wormhole you just got to. So I don't really understand that.
So we're a pretty democratic corp, I'd like to think. We're very much so about working off the pulse of our members. Like was said earlier, we're much more casual. And there was a movement to want to move to a different wormhole. So
C6,
okay.
Right?
I mean, I think all actions will speak clear for that, but I'd prefer not to say.
I saw the poll, bro. I saw the poll. Come on. You want to move to a C6? Don't be coy.
They want to give it a try.
Is riddled with spies always.
Why C6 space? Like I don't understand. Like it's like away from the current PvP groups and wormholes. Like C6 bases or farms. Like why would you want to move to a C6? I'm just confused.
I mean, why not? We've done the C5
because there's no one there to fight.
Sure. Maybe more people will move into C6s. Maybe we'll get more content out of the wandering null-sec connections from it. Maybe we'll just get more connections in general because C6s, there aren't that many of them. People want to try different things. Cool, we're
fair enough.
on.
Not a gamble I take personally, but I understand.
Question: How many of your 36 carriers died, if any? I don't
know. Like I said, I missed the fights. You can look at the battle report and see. We probably lost the majority of them. 20 of the 36, I want to say. You can look at the battle report and see. We fed a bunch.
We lost them on the we killed them on the final timer, the one with the frig hole opening.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that.
The wormhole fight.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people had any of them survive would probably just assume that you'd then be living back in a pre-seeded hole at that point. If you move, at least someone's got to spend another month seeding another 36 carriers.
That's definitely a consideration too. Yeah.
Right, just pre-seeded. We don't care.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good. It's all good fun, all good content. To be honest.
Yeah, no, it's a good decision, right? Move to a C6, try something new. I personally would never do it, but
yeah, I mean,
I understand the reasoning. I guess
definitely worth a shot. And to be honest, if it works well for TDSyn, then if you might find other people follow them, and that's always needs someone to try it,
Yeah, that's right. And the problem is if one group tries and not a lot of other groups try, we're just not going to let you live there, right? Like if it's just
we're clearly just going to have to fight Dead Star a lot. Like that's what it's.
Yeah, I feel like Wolf Aprils, bro. Get your confessors out, have fun.
Well, that's the joke I keep making is if we move to a C6, unfortunately, Dead Star is going to lose their title as the #1 PvP group.
A 6-1, don't they, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Why the fuck do they live in a 6-1? Can someone please explain that to me? Why would you live in a 6-1?
Do they actually?
You just want to crab in peace.
I could be stupid. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure they live in a 6-1.
I have no idea. It's been a long time since I've seen them, so.
I'm probably stupid. I'm sorry, Dead Star people, if I'm wrong.
They had a lot of people at Eve North. I was very surprised to see the number of people they had at Eve North. It was impressive. Like they had, I think it was 10 or 15 people there wearing Dead Star shirts every day.
I'm stupid, by the way. Someone just pinged me and said they're in a 6-5. I'm an idiot. Ignore me. They don't live in a 6-1. Sorry, Dead Star people.
And it should be noted as well. Just because somebody's not playing the game the way you feel is the optimal way to play doesn't mean they're wrong. And by no means
that's right.
That, they're incorrect either.
Yeah, nothing wrong with 6-5. Vision Inker in a 6-5. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really useful when your fight with them ends up rolling into their home system.
That wasn't their home, that was their farm. Your scouts are quite bad. So
regardless.
I was kind of confused when you guys were saying, you guys were saying it's their home. I was like, what? It's not their home. It's a farm. But, okay.
We rolled into something with visioning stuff. That's all I knew.
Yeah, it was a farm.
So, Braxus, you said you lost a lot of stuff. Is that one Orthrus still alive that you've...
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, I didn't lose a lot. I forgot one thing, as is typical for me. I forgot about 30 Macarials that I had repackaged from Cobalt Edge. I brought them into Rage because we sold Cobalt Edge. Brought in about 30 Macarials, unfit hulls or something. And then I forgot them. So I think that's all that dropped that was mine in Rage. But 30 Macarials is what? They're 400 mil each, 10, 20 bill. So yeah, a good chunk was mine. But yeah, I saved my very expensive Orthrus, which I'm very glad for. It's fun to nano.
Here's an interesting question that has kind of confused me. Why do most of the medium and larger scale Wormhole Corps not have keep stars? Is that just cost?
Because
Disadvantage, right?
null-sec will come and shoot them?
Nah, it's not even that. It's a disadvantage, right? The docking radius is bigger.
How is that a disadvantage?
Yeah, well, for example, if you want to use long-range dreads as an example to fight a battleship fleet, something we were kind of worried TDSM would do, the model's bigger, so you can't do long-range dreads as well. It's longer for fighters to burn from a carrier on dock, and there's no advantage for it.
Ton of advantage.
So there's
other than
also
big dick and harder to hit with the DD. You're right, yeah, a bit of an advantage, but the
Well, I
trade-off
mean,
isn't worth it.
you have Doomsdays, you have that massive damage cap increase, you have, you know,
Yeah,
the
you're right,
increased
yeah.
tether can be a disadvantage, but can also be an advantage too.
That's true.
So-
Yeah, that's right.
So the way I kind of looked at it years ago when I was helping TDSN build their defensive strategy was also, we can spend 300+ bill on a structure, or we can spend 300 bill on carriers and tempests and materials and rolling ships and whatever else, and have that stuff. So if we do get allies in, we can have a big ass fight, and that's probably going to give us our best chance.
I mean, that's sort of right, but like, you know, when you have like 6 Fortizars anyways, and I mean, Keepstars are down to like 220 now. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, you also got to consider the fact that if you've got a Fortizar and you're a Wormhole group, not Fortizar, a Keepstar, and someone wants to come and kill it, then the fleet that's going to come to kill your Keepstar is probably going to be something a lot bigger than you can realistically defend against, full stop. I mean, we basically saw that happen when Initiative came in to kill the original Rage Keepstars. HK by themselves were just not capable of defending them. It's just, against a null-sec blob, there's nothing any Wormhole group in isolation can really do. So, I think we saw a lot of the Wormhole groups who had Keepstars basically turn and look at them and say, that's a big target that we cannot defend by ourselves. So they pulled them down. Like Fortizars, there's less of a big shiny target for the big null-sec groups to want to come in and, you know, kick your sandcastle over. And if you can't defend it, then is there any real business of you having one? Just because it's, like Braxus says, it's a, you know, a big deck and you get a nice Doomsday, but that's really it.
Cost is a good point as well, like Jack said, right? Like, Wormhole Corps are quite poor compared to Null Corps. I think HK is the only Wormhole Corp with actual money. I think everyone else kind of lives paycheck to paycheck in Wormholes.
Well, there's no point in having a Keepstar. You can't have supers in the Keepstars. Sorry,
Well, we talked
in
about
Wormholes.
Just like there's no point of
DD.
having a Keepstar in high sec, there is definitely a point in having a Keepstar.
You got the DD.
As we've been on for about 2 hours now, I just want to ask one last question. I think before we start looking towards wrapping this up, because I think while it's very interesting and I've been enjoying it so far, it's not exactly World War Wormholes when we're just talking about the intricacies of Keepstar Warfare. One thing that you brought up earlier, Braxus, was some I can't keep using the same phrase, bad blood, particularly directed at Jack here. Jack,
for sure.
What's your side on this? I suppose don't want to go in the deep full story, but what's your opinion on this? Because it sounds
we can talk about the embezzling thing if you'd like. Like, did you accuse me of embezzling money back in the Rage Eviction?
I would like to think that it would behoove all of us here to not bring up this kind of drama. You want to have this discussion, Brax? Cool, we can have that discussion. But
I'd just like you to say whether it's true or not, whether you accuse me of that or not. Like, just a simple yes or no.
Again, I really don't think it's worth anyone's time to get into this.
Come on, man. Yes or no?
We both sound petty. If we want to have a discussion in private, we can have a discussion in private. That's fine.
I'd prefer if you admitted it or not, but all right.
But we can have a nice chat there. Otherwise, let's talk about something else. It's just going to sound like a couple of babies whining at each other. Like, that's what it'll boil down to. So let's shoot each other. Let's have a good time.
All right. Good job avoiding the question, bro.
If someone doesn't want to talk about a subject, that's absolutely fine. Nobody's here to be forced to do something.
Let me be clear. I don't know the story. I don't even know any of this drama. But I officially accuse you of embezzling.
Bro, that's fucking rough. That's it. You've done it in public as well. That's it.
Yeah.
We're coming for tests, bro. Gonna build up a fucking blob.
Seed some carriers into ESO.
Yeah, we'll seed some carriers into ESO. See you in Stain.
Actually, I remember when we had access to your high command channel and you guys were seeding capitals into I don't know who was into Faith Abilis. You set up the Renter Corp and you started building the capital there. We're like, let's let them build the first 50, then we'll reinforce the Asbel. It's like
fucking Capri,
trying
dude.
to seed those
Don't you just love Capri?
Well, the
My best
alternative is
friend.
to evict the test corps living in wormholes.
Old Capri.
Right, if we're running out of things to talk about apart from the occasional spicy meme and a bit of drama, what do we think about bringing this to an end? Astrid, partly because I imagine Braxus yourself, and I am also desperate to the toilet, and I've got to go do other things.
Yeah, Brax has been holding it like a champ for a while.
I legit have been like half an hour, man. Fuck.
I feel like I should just bring up something juicy just to keep you there longer than.
Oh, no thanks.
You're torturing me too, so I wouldn't appreciate it. I do have the ability to mute you, so we'll go with that route if we have to.
No,
Right,
I mean, thanks for having me on, and thanks for discussion, Braxus.
Nice to talk to you, boys.
Yeah, it was good.
People who aren't civil are idiots, right? People who can't have a proper conversation are fucking morons. Got to have a good conversation, chat about the game.
Just spurg and local about things. Yeah. It's nice to be able to sit there and have an adult conversation.
Listen, I love a bit of spurg in game as much as me, right? But when you're being serious on a podcast, you got to chat about things properly, right? You can't be a little idiot.
I will admit this is one of the more civilized discussions I've heard on various comms.
I mean, people like to joke that wormholes are the adults of Eve.
Nobody actually thinks that, though.
No,
yeah,
of course
no,
not.
Think
no one here is a
come on.
adult, are we?
Wormholes are like the edgy teenagers.
Yeah, that's probably more accurate, to be fair.
We're gentlemen acting as hooligans, not the other way around.
I think we'll close it there then. Thanks for joining us. We had our dear friend Villy sneak in, and was it Viley? Which one's the right one?
It's Villy.
Villy sneak in and drop some little zingers occasionally and contribute some quite interesting insights. Braxus, thanks for joining us. That was nice.
No worries, man. Happy to be on. I don't enjoy public stuff, like I said, but I'm happy to jump on occasionally. I'm not a podcast person usually.
Me neither. I just got given the keys and thought to run.
Yeah, you've done very well, I'm sure. Done great.
Yeah. Thank all the guests. I think Ashi left a while ago. Ithaca
probably has structures to defend.
I think Gagarin popped in a few times, and then there's also Persona Non Grata, which I have no idea who that is. But thanks for coming. I think that's it for the day. Well, not the day.
Cheers, mate.
I don't know
Cheers.
what time saying.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Again, if you want to chat later, Brax, we can. Talk to you guys later.
Let's do it.
The stream's over.